starting off on Taiko Temple, then going over to Atlas Labs and Night Market for the other two. But getting into this game, these rosters are kind of loaded with some NASA vets for sure. Polar Cortex, a team to be on the lookout for. Kind of an up-and-coming midfielder throughout this tournament to keep your eye on. Meanwhile, Ember's Flame has Jay, kind of the signature NASA veteran, certified Juno GOAT. But joining her is Mr. Zert and Wisp. Mr. Zert been around for a while, a NAST veteran from last season, and Wisp kind of a wild card though. So interested to see how these teams kind of pan out. They're seated right next to each other as well. And as they start to kick off game one here with their picks, we'll see what they got.
Yeah, a couple of interesting compositions coming out here. Good to see the Juno back in here for A, as you brought up. A player that we've been told to get a little bit hyped for, and a composition that could just be 3 goalies if you move the characters around just a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how Polar Cortex is going to be able to be performing with this one. Elo Tourist, of course, going to be the one who is in the actual goal arc on the Kai, and so far doing a good job of being able to fend off some of this early aggression. Mr. Zert doing a good job of continuing to poke this core in, but it's not able to find its way home. A nice Giga Blast going to send things back over towards the left, take the first barrier up against Wisp, and Elo Tourist going to try to keep it on up here, try to get it back into Chaotic's hands, who's just waiting for the pass to come on through. A going to be beating up on the top side to keep pushing it down. Jay going to be able to move things back around and get it back over into Elo Tourist's face, and finally they will find their first barrier in the set.
And Elo Tourist on the Kai, it's not a goalie pick you see super often on this map. Ooh, big slimes coming out from A there for that aggression. But yeah, normally we see a lot of turtle goalies like Atlas and whatnot, but Named Chaotic went with the Mako forward, so that ended up taking that off the table, and it can kind of give a lot of trouble to those turtle goalies, just being a counter wall, a counter stuffer in those pockets, and with A on the slimes to just put a bunch of stuff right behind them. It definitely makes for a really strong corner offense here, and with the perfect form all around, the cooldowns are definitely going to be the name of the game here, as we're kind of seeing abilities constantly getting used.
Yeah, nice use of the perfect pitch there coming through from Named Chaotic on the other side, able to fire it up off the top, get the recoil, and come back on through on the rebound, rather, to be able to find its way into the barrier, but does get cleared out eventually, and Drum and Bass actually going to end up sending it backwards there for a moment. Flip comes out of Wisp just to buy a little bit of time, gets it back down to Jay after juking him out, and Jay now looking for the barrier, will be able to find a KO found on the opposite side, and now a breakaway opportunity here for Ember. They look to see if they can find themselves the closeout. Ember's Flame, one more shot, not quite able to get it in there with the piercing shot, but Mr. Zert not letting up yet. Another poke forward with the Umbrella. Should be able to find that maddening descent here for a little bit of another ricochet to try to push it on through. Jay goes in for another piercing shot, and able to fund it there either, and the comeback from the drums still going to end up just with Named Chaotic able to take it back on the offense, and now a scoring opportunity eventually here for Ember's Flame. Even goals for both sides. Who's going to be able to find it here? A with a little bit of an own goal. Comes in off the drum and goes right into the goal.
Yeah, you hate to see it. A bit of a staple of that map. The center bounce own goal. Midfielders and goalies alike will look for the clear that they're so used to doing through the midfield, and it just kind of messes up, especially in overtime when things are going kind of fast and you don't always paying attention. But Mr. Zert able to preserve the core flip that he earned last round off of that, so gonna be able to use it here actually. A nice block from Elo Tourist, but the barrier will fall, and once again Ember's Flame in a pretty good position here with 2 barriers still up.
And Snare Drum's going a little wide, and an open goal found once again here for Polar Cortex. Struggled for a while to be able to put it in last time, or sorry, for Ember's Flame rather. So far not able to take it all the way home today. He lines up the shot, still not going to be able to send it through, trying to get it back up to Mr. Zert. Going to be continuously fended away by Elo Tourist and A here for the backup, but top spin, going to send it through. Mr. Zert gets it in there and will take them to set point.
Yep, positioning there by Mr. Zert. Jay doing a really good job. He keeping control here in this midfield, even against the Juno, which the Slimes have been proving to be kind of the big weapon that Polar Cortex has been relying on. But when Ember's Flame is able to kind of play around that and just constantly feed Xerth the core, that's when we're seeing them get these points. But Name Chaotic holding on to the core for a pretty long time there, keeping possession, and now the state of the game has switched just a little bit as it's Polar Cortex who find themselves with a pretty good barrier advantage. Core flip from A will get blocked away, but Ember's Flame holding on for life right now.
Yeah, Polar Cortex in a real favored position here to be able to send this to point 5. Elo Tourist ready to send things back over off the back of the rebound. A flip available for Name Chaotic, and they take it into the bottom of the goal. Wisp not able to get the position for that one. The Cosmic Expansion not reaching that far. So we do go the full distance in our first set of the day here, Lego.
Yeah, these teams keeping it neck and neck so far. Wisp does have the flip up and available very early in Snare Drums from Name Chaotic. But so far, no one able to find a huge offensive setup here. We'll see if Ace able to make a play on the top side right now, pushing that corner hard. But so far, nothing big. Wisp going for the core flip pretty early on. The barrier's still staying up. They're going to have to play around the energy that Mr. Xerth's earning right now. But a great strike war from A. Defense is on lock right now for both sides. Polar Cortex not letting anything get by at all, and they'll actually be the ones to pick up the first barrier.
Wow, great save once again by Elo Tourist. Doing a great job on the defense in the goal arc this game. It's just the offense coming through from Polar Cortex's felt a little bit lacking. Perhaps character choice having a little bit to do with that. Not the most offensively minded composition here, but Elo Tourist has been able to hold down the fort for long enough to keep them competitive. Flip comes out, though, doesn't find the core this time. Second barrier falls, and nearly a scoring opportunity for Jay. She just can't quite send it the rest of the way through, but Mr. Xerth waiting up on the top side. Piercing shot connects, and Jay will send it home for the first set of the game. That will be Ember's Flame taking an early lead.
Jay, the MVP here. As we get into draft one, the first spark showing up. Someone could opt into this, but Stack's Twin Drive also available, and it looks like it will be Pancakes for the Estelle right now. Primetime Twin Drive also showing up here pretty big when you have a Kazan and a Mako in the game. The Primetime going to get picked up by Elo Tourist on the Kai. They're actually going for the size here. Going to look to get really big. Leave the Twin Drive available for the Atlas, but A is going to be the one to actually deny that away. Sparks opted into by Name Chaotic. Tennis Creator, still a pretty good pickup. Falling all the way down to Wisp at the end there. Pretty solid draft all around. I don't think everyone kind of get what they want there. There's no like huge advantage I can really see.
Yeah, no, definitely some important pieces coming through for both of the team compositions, and after a close round number 1, looks like we might get a pretty close set number 2 here. A trying to push on down, get it over into Name Chaotic's hands. Elo Tourist on the backup, but it gets away from him. Nice job by Jay to sneak that one around the defender, find the second barrier, open up the goal, and the Crystal Thorns now to follow on up. Going to be Make It Rain coming through from A just to try to provide that additional backup, try to keep the core on the offensive side, and Snare Drums find their way onto Wisp, but not going to be able to block them out of too many defensive options. Another attempted shot from A, use the blob bounce, not going to be able to get that one through, and the defense from Wisp very good here, continuing to be able to navigate this core in and around these barriers, but finally they will find the second one. The blobs keeping the offense going. Flip comes through from Name Chaotic. A shot not quite going to find its way into the goal. Elo Tourist coming in for the backup, fires off the kick-up blast. Another shot towards Wisp. Ask for protection, going to fend it away, and finally they force it through. 2 members strong, and the first point of the set goes to Polar Cortex.
Now, Polar Cortex, they're doing a really good job whenever they're able to keep the core up on Ember's side of the field. They have the tools with the Slimes, as well as with the Giga Blast. Elo Tourist doing a great job with those to just keep the offense going. And as long as Name Chaotic can hold onto the core, they can keep the offense up. But it's, as we see right here, when Ember's Flame is able to kind of convert it back over to their side, they struggle to get it off of Polar Cortex's side of the field quite a lot. Juno is not exactly the best character for doing that, and Kai does not like it when people are up in his face. And as we're seeing right here, now it's Ember's Flame who, once they kind of get that momentum, are able to really keep it.
Yeah, ooh, nice move by Jay there. Uses the Rose Warp, gets a good favorable bounce, and guides that right into the goal. And just like that, Ember's Flame able to tie things up and able to maintain their lead here in game number 1. Elo Tourist, as you said, just really struggling when faced with a massive amount of pressure at the start of that point.
Yeah, especially on this map, it becomes very easy for a ranged goalie to get overwhelmed in those corners right now. And Mr. Zert, a bit of a miscrooked leverage there, but they're looking to recover in the midfield, try and regain some of their offense. But A doing a good job working his way up the field there. A nice piercing shot from Jay puts the pressure right back on Mr. Zert, but main Chaotic looking for the barrier is going to get the core flip instead. Not a bad trade there. And a great kick blast from Elo Tourist will get it back to the midfield.
Jay taking a lot of damage as they try to position themselves to take that second barrier, and at risk of getting KO'd now, named Chaotic in a similar position on the opposite side, gets hit with another top spin and is forced back up to the top. Going to just go right in for the flip, throws down the ensnare drums and traps the core for themselves. A little bit of a non-bow there. Is A going to be able to send it back on down towards the bottom using their own core flip. Finds the first of the barriers named Chaotic. Looking to keep it pushed up towards the top, but going to be KO'd for it. Mr. Zert goes for one last poke in towards the barrier, but can't quite find its way onto the core. So that one barrier will remain. Elo Tourist still doing a good job of keeping up the defense, using the barrage to push it back out onto the offensive side. Named Chaotic now respawned. A KO found on Polar Cortex's side, and they now have the power play available. Wisp fending it away, doing a good job with the astral projection, hanging on, much the same way Elo Tourist is on the opposite side. Piercing shot going to be able to connect onto its target, and a shot into the bottom corner from Mr. Zert will take them up 2-1.
Wow. Really tricky shot there from Zert off the center. Elo Tourist did not know where that was going to be going. But I'd like to point out, Wisp and Jay did a very good job buying time on that power play. The way that they were dribbling, Wisp did a center dribble and then a dribble off the drum on the bottom, and a couple dribbles around named Chaotic to just not let the Mako even have a chance to touch the core so that Mr. Zert could respawn. And they just burnt a whole lot of time and did not let Polar Cortex capitalize on that KO whatsoever.
Yeah, Seeding had this as a close game, and it has made itself that way so far. A faint lead over to Ember's Flame, Seed 9 team, but still plenty of comeback opportunity to be had. One more score, though, will put them in a pretty dominant position for this game number one. Polar Cortex fighting back, though, keeping themselves competitive in this one. They need to start getting some scores on the board, though. Second barrier going to fall. Jay done a great job from this bottom side at cycling through shooting options, using the piercing shot, getting the core into great positions, and taking it forward. Another Rose Warp attempt, not going to find its way into the goal. Mr. Zert trying to send it backwards in through the drums. It is bouncing back on the opposite side now. A flip comes out once again from named Chaotic, and they manage to juke it out with the astral projection, take the barrier, and take the point. Great passing play between A and Chaotic there.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was pointing out earlier as well. If the core ever gets past named Chaotic, A has like every tool to send it right back forward, but not a lot of tools to get it off their side of the field. And when they're in that position where they're just able to hold it up in Wisp's face and not like lose possession at all, long enough for A's cooldowns to come back up, it becomes so hard to get it away from this Mako. And now once again on 0.5, I mean, both these teams just keeping it absolutely neck and neck. The energy very well might end up being what determines this. Egoist and Catalyst could very well just be the pickups that define this game. And if they show up this set, the winner, well, they could be looking at a pretty big lead.
Absolutely. Would definitely give a chance for Ember's Flame to potentially run away with it. Would give a lot of margin for error in the game number one at the very least. Astral projection from Wisp trying to support this last crucial point. Not able to get it on through, but the goal is open. Flip comes out of the goal, trying to keep the offense going. And it will be fended back away by named Chaotic once again. Drum and Bass doing their best to keep that core on the offensive. They open up the goal on the opposite side. A going to go in for the flip, but it's fended back away by Jay. Looking for the piercing shot, not quite able to find it there, but Mr. Zert waiting around. Should have that maddening descent available before too long and would give them a shot to be able to take it all the way to the goal. Jay goes in for the bounce once again, lands the piercing shot out of two. One more poke, they get another from Mr. Zert, but still not getting into the goal. Named Chaotic with a shooting opportunity, doesn't take it that time. A trying to reset it, get another one into their hands. Jay goes in for another shot. She cannot find it, but has access to the core flip now, dribbling it off the bottom, shooting it forward. Elo Tourist going to use their own flip to be able to send it back away. Jay taking it through the bottom. Mr. Zert dashes forward, finds the shot, and takes the lead for Ember's Flame, 2-0.
But Great setup there from Jay. Zert knew the job, and Jay, the rightful MVP, I think, of that set, played an absolutely solid few rounds of Estelle there, and Fight or Flight will be her reward. One of the best awakenings in the game, debatably the best awakening in the game. So an absolutely huge momentum shift here for Ember's Flame. Monumentalist going to get picked up here by the Juno. More of a deny against Wisp, who's going to get Team Player instead, which is only going to help even more with getting it past that midfield line. Rampage going to have to get denied here from Elo Taurus. That's a bit of a rough pickup, as you don't want Mr. Zert getting any bigger. And Mr. Zert, of course, going to deny the Spark in turn against Named Chaotic, which Spark of Speed isn't horrible by itself, but I think Ember's Flame definitely came out the winners in that draft for sure. If they're able to keep up the momentum, game one, it might just be theirs.
Very well could be. Oh, and again, some shenanigans with the center drums. Going to end up with a free barrier given over, but POLR makes it worth it. They take the goal on the opposite side and an early lead in set number 3, and just like that, we'll forget about maybe some of those shenanigans that we saw.
Yeah, I mean, I said that Ember's Flame would have the advantage, so naturally they have to score a 20-second point just for fun here. But
that's what having the advantage is like sometimes.
I mean, yeah, that's how it's because I said it. I cursed them. That's generally just how it goes, you know.
It is. But Jay taking it down towards the bottom once again, looking to just keep cycling the same mode of offense that have gotten them this far. But Named Chaotic again, just getting in there, able to jam it into those barriers and slip it through right as the goal's opening up. And a 2-0 lead here for Polar Vortex, incredibly early, and they have a chance at being able to take this one to a set number 4 at the very least.
Yeah, that was a really big ensnare drums from Named Chaotic. He trapped Mr. Zert, Wisp, and himself all inside of it, and there was just nowhere to go. The topspin ended up just ricocheting off the back wall and just sending it right back in. And now there's going to be 3 flips available for Polar Cortex. They might actually just be able to steal a set away and drag this game on for longer. Jay and Mr. Zert and Wisp, actually, everyone's getting core flips up right now, and we're about to see a lot of energy getting burnt here.
Yeah, really good defense there for Elo Taurus once again, able to fend things away from those flips. Jay and Wisp have flips of their own now available, a lot of economy available. The A going to be the first one to use theirs. Named Chaotic waiting on the opposite side. Jay going to go in for the flip, sends it through with the piercing shot, and will be able to take that second barrier. A chance for the goal now, but continuing to be able to find barriers on the opposite is Named Chaotic. Piercing shot blocked by the blob. KO found, and Polar Vortex with a power play and a moment to be able to take a set for themselves. Steal that one away, like you said. Named Chaotic, the flip though, going to be stuffed away by Wisp, and going to buy some of that additional time. Goal gets opened up. Named Chaotic with scoring chance, not able to find it. Jay giving him one more chance as the blob send it back forward, and Named Chaotic pushes it through. 3-0 in set number 3, and Polar Vortex hang on.
Huge win there for Polar Vortex. And Named Chaotic, the MVP. No Spark showing up, unfortunately. That could have been pretty big to get Spark of Focus here. But some other nice options available. So it's going to be a built different pickup, but Hotshot, Rapid Fire, Stagger Swagger all still available on the board. Wisp going to have to deny away that Hotshot from the Juno. A going to pick up the Rapid Fire in turn. Even more cooldowns with the Twin Drive perfect form now. That Juno is kind of scary. A Dash Awakening here for Jay, as this Estelle build is looking absolutely disgusting in turn. Elo Taurus opting in for the Unstoppable, and Mr. Zert landing Stagger Swagger. Some good pickups all around, but both the midfielders looking pretty happy here, as once again, I think these two are going to end up kind of defining the tempo of this game.
Definitely could. Named Chaotic, though, right into their faces to start things off. Loses a fair bit of stagger, but has some to spare. Jay getting it back over to Mr. Zert, but all 3 members of Ember forced onto the defense here, and A not letting up, using the blobs to keep it going. Finds the first of the barriers. Snuck back away by Jay, but Elo Taurus just ready to send it back over in the nick of time, and makes it incredibly difficult to actually be able to hang on to this for long at all. A sends it back on up. Named Chaotic looking for another shot onto the barrier, but stolen away by Jay, pushing in for that second barrier and trying to get themselves back into scoring position as they've given up 3 in a row now. definitely don't want to give up some of that lead. They have a margin of error, but it is not infinite, and stagger onto Mr. Zert already going to make things a little bit tougher. Named Chaotic, loses a fair bit of stagger, gets staggered back away by the piercing shot. Not KO'd yet, though, and they don't have to stop looking for goals. A going to be the one who pushes it through. It's 1-0 again for Polar Vortex.
Great core flip mind game from Polar Cortex there, and A threading the needle there. As soon as they saw Wisp start to move down, that's when they knew that they had the open shot. Ember's Flame thought that they were going to be going for a passing play there, which I think would have been like the typical reaction, but A saw the opportunity and took it, and a great stall on the course as well from Named Chaotic to throw Ember's Flame off of their game a little bit there. So, but now with no energy though, Ember's Flame a little bit in the lead in that department. We'll see if they're able to get a point here in return and bring the set back.
Absolutely here, and able to find these barriers repeatedly now to fend off any potential comeback opportunity. I say comeback, the lead does still sit with Ember for the time being, but not going to be as firm as it was earlier. Flip used early by Jay, doesn't find its way onto the core. There's a KO found, and a power play here will give a chance for the blue side to be able to get themselves back into this. Ember's Flame really need to stem the bleeding here, as they've given up 4 in a row now, and certainly wouldn't want to make it 5. Full force is available for both teams now. Elo Tourist fending it back away. Named Chaotic throws out the ensnare drums, not able to connect it onto the core or anybody, but A is cycling back onto the offense. Mr. Zert comes on down. Jay has fallen back onto defense, though. She's not able to get into the bottom, where she's constantly been able to find these big piercing shot angles throughout the game, and making it tougher to make this offense work. Named Chaotic with another shot coming through, not letting up, but Jay going to be able to fend it on down towards the bottom. Named Chaotic, though, ricochets it off the top. Wisp can't reach it in time and make that 5 points in a row.
Polar Cortex, they are making the biggest comeback potentially in this game, and this is only game 1 as well. They managed to bring this back. I think that's going to be a pretty big hit to Ember's Flame for sure, when they had it basically in the bag. Bit of a cheeky KO there onto Named Chaotic. A nice Rose Warp there from Jay. Will start off the power play, and we'll see if Ember's Flame is able to capitalize on this one. Polar Cortex's defense held up the last time they got it, but it looks like it will once again. Only one barrier going to actually fall there.
Now falling back to the defense yet again are Ember's Flame. They look to find a way to get back into this one and start finding some scores again, but down 2-0. It's looking like we very well might have a set 5 before too long. A, with the flip available, going to use it, gets it back over to Named Chaotic. Drum and bass sends it into the wrong direction, but back into the ensnare drums, nearly finding the barrier. Don't know how that one didn't actually end up coming through, but they will hold on to it for the time being. Named Chaotic trying to get the perfect pitch off the top, will be able to get the strike in onto the barrier. Open goal for Polar Vortex as they look to be able to cycle it back. But Jay, back into that bottom corner, back with the piercing shot. Crystal Thorns combo finds her first point in a while.
A nice passing setup there from Mr. Zert as well. Synergy locking in a bit there for the forwards of Ember's Flame, and that's what you got to see. They got to get that momentum back that they had in the earlier sets when they were holding the core on Polar Cortex's side of the field for so long. Polar Cortex have been doing a good job recently of clearing it out of there much sooner. And I think Jay and Mr. Zert now having to figure out how to play around that and catch up to it, because forcing them to fall back is definitely rough for Ember's Flame.
Yeah, and ooh, a KO found here for Ember's Flame, giving them another chance. Open goal already available. Jay, with a shooting opportunity, warps up, piercing shots down, doesn't find the core, but they're not done here yet. There's the crooked leverage, bringing it back on in. The flip from Elo Tourist will clear things back out, and Named Chaotic right back onto the offense. They do manage to withstand the pressure for the time being, but now barriers starting to fall onto the Polar Vortex side. They get the first one. Mr. Zert, though, finds a poke down towards the bottom, and Snare Drum's going to hold it in place for the time being. Jay's flip going to go to waste as they aren't able to actually get a good shot on goal off of it. Mr. Zert brawling with A, but A continues to send it leftward and not able to hold on to it is Zert, but the poke upwards and into the goal takes us to point number 5, and Ember's Flame with a shot to take the series right here.
And that's big fish right there. That was press the point, big fish. A didn't even have a chance to strike that one second. The hitbox just a bit too big. Mr. Zert is able to cover quite a bit of ground in terms of repositioning around in the midfield with the Stagger Swagger and the Spark of Speed here. And winning Strike Wars is definitely something that Size Kazan is able to do right now. So we'll see if they continue to get it past. But trading barriers here, it's Ember's Flame that has an open goal. And if A and Elo Torres can convert this, it might just be the set.
It could be set number 5 here, all coming down. 2.5 set 4. A chance to close it out for Ember's Flame, but they need to resteady themselves and get this offense grooving. Once again, good use of the top spin from Mr. Zert. Going to be able to find that second barrier, open up the goal. Coming down with the maddening descent, taking another shot in from the top side. Jay already using those Crystal Thorns. Rose warps back to the bottom, not getting the bounce that she wants. Sent back up to the top side. Mr. Zert dashes forward, top spin again, knocks back away A, has access to the flip now. Mr. Zert takes another shot, blocked away by Elo Tourist, who has the flip of their own, but A can't hold on to the defense. Mr. Zert pokes it through, and game number 1 will go to Ember's Flame.
Big win. Polar Cortex almost brought that back in kind of a scary fashion, but Ember's Flame will hold strong. Jay putting up a very solid performance there. Going to be rewarded the MVP. 264 redirects on the Estelle. A with 318 on the Juno, and Mr. Zert with 268. Everyone putting up pretty big numbers across the board for a 25-minute game. Not even the longest games that we've seen for sure. But if that's going to set the pace for this series at all, then I think we've definitely got a nail-biter on our hands, a potential Game 3 run here. I mean, after that, and that's with A picking up the Juno as well. It's kind of famous at this point that a lot of people ban or pick away Juno from Jay, but it's happened so much that Jay literally just plays another character and still is able to dominate pretty solidly. So it's very difficult to ban out the midfielder here for Ember's Flame.
Yeah, and I mean, that's as close of a game as you're really ever going to get. 3 of the sets go to 5 points there, and the one set that didn't go to 5 points was a 3-0 for the team that ends up losing the match. So a very, or the game rather, not the match, but a very, very close start here for our Seed 8 versus Seed 9 matchup. Seed 9 going to start things off with the early lead, but now we're going to move on over to Ember Flame's choice. It's going to be Atlas's Lab for game number 2. So looking forward to kicking off that draft before too long and finding out how these teams want to adapt. I do wonder if Polar Vortex is going to look for maybe a more traditional composition, something with a more traditional brawler, and see if they can find themselves a little bit more space to play with if they're able to achieve that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's something to consider here. I think the Mako forward is definitely situational. It can be good on maps like Taiko, where you have a lot of those corners to really work with. It can work on Atlas like as well, but I think not as like ideally. You have to be like pretty good at it. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially depending on starting awakenings here, if we just see like an X or an Asher, as well as since you're playing against Mr. Zert, a guy kind of known for playing the X. If this does end up being like a decent X start, that might just be the pick. I wouldn't be surprised. I think when you're down a game as well, the KO comp can definitely be a risk worth taking. And it actually looks like it's Adrenaline Rush and Twin Drive showing up here. 2 pretty interesting awakenings if they do end up going the damage route. That Ad Rush could mean a Juliet pick could be on the table.
Yeah. Polar Cortex going to take away the IME to start things off with, and then there goes the Kazan as well, so Ember Flame don't want to see that one a second time. The Juno going to be snapped up by Polar Cortex to start things off, and now looking at a Rasmus Atlas rotation, get themselves just a little bit more control over the core and running back that goalie selection that was so good for them in game 1.
Yeah. Um, Looks like the Mako coming back out again. There's the Kai, it looks like, for Elo Tourist. So the same comp from Polar Cortex. They're running it back, presumably playing around the twin drive, which is actually pretty big, especially for the Mako and the Kai. That is in fact Mako forward. You can still you can use one of your secondaries for scoring and another one for buffing your team on defense, kind of the opposite of how Mako goalie does it, but similar comp coming out as well from the other side. It looks like we're gonna have Jay back on the Estelle, and
So
just
it's really
Rasmus here for
it's
Mr.
one pick
Surya.
that's different, really. It's the
Yeah,
Rasmus for Kazan Swaparuni, as the Kazan ends up banned away by Ember's Flame. So an interesting one coming on through. Of course, the side swap as well and the map swap going to have some degree of influence. But yeah, we'll see. The Atlas, of course, incredibly adept at being able to defend some of these little circular barriers that you find on Atlas's lab. I do wonder if the map swap here is going to lead to maybe a different one of these characters in the goal arc for Polar Cortex. You could see something like a Mako goalie here, and then you just move the Kai over to forward. It's an option that they have if they do want to go for it, but that's the question, right? Is that actually something that they're interested in sampling for game number 2, especially when they have their upper bracket run on the line here with already being down 0-1?
yeah, it's definitely an interesting scenario. You're kind of running double midfield at that point, which I think against an Atlas is like not bad. Once you get the goal open, you can really like maneuver the core around him. But the problem is you also have Jay on the Estelle back there, who is exerting quite a lot of control. I think just running back what they did previously and kind of hoping that it goes better is really what they're hoping for, because I think they definitely had the opportunity to win that first game, and I think they know that. And maybe if a few awakenings went different, maybe if a few plays, a few missed bounces, a few strike wars went different, that could have definitely been in their hands. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's literally just the Mako forward and then A just backing him up, dropping the slimes in midfield, Gigablast barrage coming out from the goal box, just keep the core as far up as possible and just burn the cooldowns off of the Atlas.
Yeah, that could definitely be a strategy that works here. Is really curious to see if even Ember's Flame want to make some real massive changes in their strategy here. It's not like that was a dominant game 1 performance from them despite the win. They definitely did show that they could give up quite a few points. They got 3-0'd in 1 set, got taken to 5 points all the other sets. So a rough run of it, even though they do end up coming out on top at the end, but certainly comfortable running back the same composition. So let's see how they're going to do as we get onto Atlas's lab for map number 2.
Yeah, definitely going to be. It's basically the salty run back, and it felt like last game as well, when Polar Cortex were able to get goals very quickly, to bring down the barriers as quickly as possible. That's when they were getting the points. Whereas Ember's Flame, it felt like even when they got quick barriers, it still took a little bit of setup to actually confirm the goals. When you're playing around Kazan and Estelle, you don't exactly have the run through stuffing power like someone like Mako has, where you can just get so much off of a couple abilities. So we'll see how it ends up going. Looks like it will be the goalie Kai once again, named Chaotic, continuing to stay on the Mako forward and twin drive all around except for Mr. Zert. He's going to be opting for the adrenaline rush. If a hook KO does come through, it'll be a pretty solid buff there for the Rasmus.
Would be a big help for them, but we'll see how they're going to be able to hold down here. Still Elo Tourist on that Kai goalie, and they do take both locks right off the board. Good start here for Polar Cortex as they're looking to get off to an explosive start for game number 2, try to reassert themselves after a rough game number 1. A jumping forward, not quite able to get it into the goal. Named Chaotic going to be able to knock back away Mr. Zert. A nearly going down as well, but it is a power play here for Polar Cortex. Moving it back on forward. Named Chaotic right up in the goal's face. Going to just smack it through with 1 strike.
Yeah, and that's what you're hoping for on that Mako forward. Just constant in your face pressure. There's so many hitboxes that you have to get through to clear it away, and when you're in that close of a space, there's basically no character that has a good way of doing that unless you're like Dubu or something, or someone with a good creation like Atlas Expanse is really good for it, but it's on a pretty long cooldown, so once you're able to get past that, it definitely becomes a challenge to deal with, and that's what Polar Cortex have really been playing around this whole series, is just constantly keeping the core as close to Name Chaotic as possible.
Yeah, really nice start here, though, for Ember's Flame, as they do manage to get themselves a clean little 2-barrier start, but they lose 2 of their own on the opposite side just as soon. They are going to struggle to be able to get it past Name Chaotic here. Goes in for the flip, takes the shot! Not blocked away successfully by Jay, and that's going to be a 2-0 start for Polar Cortex.
Yeah, that's a huge one as well. You got Jay's core flip out of that and still got the goal, and now you're going up with a little bit of an energy advantage. You have your goalie flip available for those defensive situations. Not anymore, I lied. The barriers get traded there. But still, a pretty early open goal here from Polar Cortex. They have the opportunity to get a quick first set, and with the KO coming out from A, that might just be what they need.
Yeah, that was a rough run of it for the Erasmus there, and now going to give a big opportunity for Polar Cortex to try to just close this one out. Not going to be able to do it quite yet. The respawn from Mr. Zert is here. Jay now low on stagger, still looking to see if she can take that second barrier, but not able to hold on to it for now. Mr. Zert taking it in towards the bottom. Pendulum swing, pressuring on towards the barrier. Jay snags it, and the attempted clear goes in for the piercing shot, and can't get it into the goal quite yet, but Mr. Zert waiting out of the bottom, goes forward, Death touches it back in, has the whiplash available for the extra strike, but not going to be able to send it through. Jay now rose warping back in front of Name Chaotic, trying to keep that core away from him, but they will get it back into their hands either way. Mr. Zert detonates it off the center, goes in with the pendulum swing. Jay going to be able to get it to pass back down. Lewis using that strike shot to put it back into Mr. Zert's hands. Mr. Zert sending it back up to the top, using Jay's Rose Warp to get into range, but still not able to take really effective shots. A, with a nice use of the blob, they are going to be able to throw it forward. Goes in for the flip. Flip used by Wisp to defend, and Mr. Zert guides it right into the corner, stopping Elo Tourist's defense and getting Ember Flame onto the board.
Some nice core speed play there. Jay preserving the speed on the pass to set up Mr. Zert, and Ilotor is not quite able to get there in time, even with the boots available. I want to point out some of the really good defense, though, that we did see from A. Something interesting that it looks like they're doing is, instead of cutting the pass between the Estelle and the Rasmus like you normally see, Elo Tourist and A are almost playing like man coverage, where A is kind of defending against Mr. Zert, and Elo Tourist is focusing mostly on things that Jay does. And we saw it in that one sequence with the death touch from Mr. Zert, where he just couldn't get it past the Juno because all of A's abilities were dedicated to blocking that, and didn't use any against the previous attempt that Jay made, whereas Elo Tourist was the one kind of dealing with that, so definitely something interesting there.
And another rough flip out of Jay, going to let the core flip by, and that will be an easy score for Polar Cortex. They get themselves up 3-1 and take set number 1, a lead to Polar Cortex for the first time this series.
Yeah, and pretty good to start off. Your hot shot's gonna be the Juno pickup. Definitely what you want to see. Fighter Flight is available, as well as Size for Mr. Zert. Should they choose to take it, look like they're going to be waiting just a moment. Missile Prop going to be denied away. That still leaves Fighter Flight on the board. Stagger Squire is going to drop all the way down to Jay. That's potentially a bit of a drafting error, I want to say. That's a really, really strong awakening. And we saw how well Jay performed last time. I think Ember's Flame, Sides on Rasmus, plus the Fighter Flight, plus the Primetime Twin Drive Atlas, they just made off like bandits on a draft they probably should have lost.
Yeah, but coming up with everything that they need and immediately taking both barriers here, revitalized by that draft advantage. Ember's Flame going to be able to send it home. Nicely done by Jay there, finding that strike, finding that, I think it was a Crystal Thorns that nudged it, and going to be able to find it.
Yeah, it's definitely a good setup here for Ember's Flame, despite losing that. That said, you have so many cooldowns now on Wisp, and so much more offensive presence on your two forwards. They basically just got exactly what they wanted here. So yeah, I saw that. I don't know why that barrier is still there.
I can't believe it. Well, well played by Wisp. I mean, just gets the bounces, gets the Thanos bounces off of that Cosmic Expanse and will not let the barrier fall. They finally get it onto the retry there, but they've already opened up the goal on the opposite side, and good res there. Celestial Intervention going to be able to get another member onto the board for just a little bit longer. Wisp able to save a teammate, goes in for the flip. Not going to be able to fire it off in time, though. Named Chaotic times it right and gets it into the second barrier. But Jay in position with another Crystal Thorns piercing shot combo. 2-0 up for Ember.
Big play from Jay. Just burnt all of the cooldowns on a very confident scoring setup there. And that's the kind of plays that you want to see coming out of this this midfield, especially you have with the twin drive as well. It's going to be a lot more common to see. A was nowhere to be found. They were not expecting Jay to literally just run up out of left field like that. But a big KO coming out there from Named Chaotic does mean Mr. Zert's going to be out of it for the time being. And they're really hoping, I think, to get a barrier on this power play, because I think if they don't, Ember's Flame, very good chance to come back and take this set.
Yeah, really good stuff there. Mr. Zert goes in for the nice little death touch there, snags it across the map, and will be able to bring it in for a barrier claimed. Respawns have come on across for him, and now looking strong, but going to lose a second barrier. Jay, another shot on the offense. She's done a great job of being able to take these top barriers for the first couple of rounds. Going to try to cycle back into it now. Good block there on the perfect pitch from Mr. Zerk, going to stop Named Chaotic from getting involved in the fight over the core. We'll get back over to him either way. Wisp going to try to clear it back out, gets snuck past Mr. Zert, and a flip is forced out of Wisp to be able to clear things back out. As the pendulum swing off of Zert, trying to ricochet it off the bottom. Named Chaotic is staggered, forced away from the play by the Rose Warp out of Jay. Another death touch nearly taking him down. They're trying to KO this guy, and they just can't do it. Named Chaotic still hanging on for the time being, and they're just going to move back over to some core-based gameplay. That's going to get moved back over to Jay. The second barrier's fallen. The goal is opened up. Mr. Zert trying to predict with the pendulum swing. Doesn't find it there. Ricocheting it off the bottom, trying to get it back into a position where Jay can try to make a shot. He really has the chance there, but cleared back away by A. Pendulum swing, puts it back into position. Jay sends it through the center, and a flip comes out of Elo Tourist to be able to save it once again. Jay ricocheting it off the top. Will have her own flip here before too long. Named Chaotic trying to push it in, and it's A with the core flip and the shot to the top corner to put Polar Cortex on the board for the set.
And Ember's Flame just out of resources there. Flips barely not available to be able to contest that one. All the cooldowns have been used to try and force that offense.
Oh!
And, Sad Boys. The core goes around. I think that's like 1-for-1 now on that angle. You got to keep it fair, you know. But Jay in a little bit of trouble. Has a flip available, but is not looking healthy. Gonna burn it before losing it, and we'll get the barrier. Now it's Wisp pushing up to try and provide this offense as Jay is back trying to recover.
Oh, and now a great flip into a double barrier out of Named Chaotic. Trying to fight their way back here. Was nearly doomed. That shot almost found its way into the goal. Flip comes out of Mr. Zert, but that was not close enough to the core. A shot from Wisp sends it back on over onto the offense. Named Chaotic with the perfect pitch ready. Dribbling it off the top. Takes the shot towards the center. Jay and Wisp going to be able to hold on to it. Named Chaotic going in for it again. And A chasing after that core. Barrage going to put it right into position. Piercing shot not going to be able to clear things back out. The black hole going to suck in that core and move it back up towards the top. Mr. Zert covering all the clear options, and a Crystal Thorns from Jay will push it into the goal. 3-1. This set goes over to Ember's Flame.
Yeah, that was a really good setup with the Rose Warp there from Jay to just blink in and then fire the Crystal Thorns. The Twin Drive is coming in big, and looking at this draft right now, there are some pretty crazy things on the board. It might just be an Egoist pickup. Perfect Form is also available, and yeah, it will be Egoist for the Estelle. Jay, once again, getting some crazy awakenings to start off. Rapid Fire going over to the Juno. Also pretty solid. Unstoppable on the Rasmus, or on the Atlas is pretty useful. Perfect Form here on the Kai. Some size on the Mako denied away from Mr. Zert, but the problem is Rampage manages to find its way all the way to the bottom onto the Rasmus. I think another really huge draft here for Ember's Flame, as they look to be in a pretty good position build-wise.
Yeah, that Egoist for Jay, going to be very happy they were able to pick that one up nice and early. and going to be in a really strong position now coming into this tied up set number 3. Both barriers taken very fast here by A and Name Chaotic, though. Finally going to be able to clear things out, or are they, as Name Chaotic with the core right in melee range once again. Rose Warp going to try to clear things back out. Mr. Zerk going to lose out on this strike war, and Wisp trying to get involved, going to have to fall back onto the defense. Astral Projection not going to be able to send that core back to where he wants it. Crystal Thorns out of Jay, trying to push in for the top barrier. Will be able to find that one, and now getting back into Mr. Zert's hands. Astral Projection again out of Wisp, trying to get involved in these midfield duels that have continuously favored Polar Cortex. Pendulum Swing not quite connecting. Jay back up towards the top, pushing towards the bottom and ricocheting off the bottom yet again. A with the core flip available, going to try to team up with Cortex here and send it through, or with Chaotic rather, and they will do so. Cortex get themselves their first of the set.
Wow, oh, what a flip from A. Did it right after Mr. Zert's strike, and Wisp and Jay, unfortunately, when you're that close to the goal line, there's not a lot of time to react, and often not a lot that you can do about a flip that close. Definitely a big play there, but energy's coming up pretty much all around for everyone else, so Ember's Flame gonna have the opportunity with 2 forward flips to make something happen, assuming Mr. Zert can stay alive here. Nice healing from Wisp to keep him healthy, but I think he ought to applying quite a bit of pressure. Jay looking for the runaway here. Both flips burnt, and that's a second barrier gone. Polar Cortex, their gate is wide open now.
Yeah, and Wisp able to juke out Name Chaotic on the core flip there as well. Wastes that tool as it doesn't find its way onto anything, but the second barrier will fall regardless. Gotta keep this core away from Name Chaotic, who has been able to convert into scores time and time again. Jay going to be able to find the resets and the ricochets that she's looking for, but Mr. Zert not quite able to catch up with the core in time. Jay now on a breakaway, goes in with the Rose Warp, can't get it in there with the piercing shot. Another pendulum swing, another shot from Jay, and a Rose Warp into top position, going to tie it up at 1-1.
This Estelle, you can't lock her down. Twin drive fight or flight. Blinking everywhere, running at Mach 10 every time you hit the core with basically anything. It becomes very difficult. Oh, Sad Boys, by the way. It becomes very difficult for them to play around it in the midfield, and once that Egoist pops, it just becomes all the harder for A to be able to do anything, especially without a jump awakening on the Juno.
Yeah, ricocheting it off the bottom yet again. And there's going to be those ensnare drums holding down Wisp. Not going to be able to take the barrier off of it, though. Jay gets it back right into the goal arc and is going to be able to find one of the barriers with help from Mr. Zert. He's got the Whiplash ready, trying to find ways to strike the core in towards the bottom. Cosmic Expanse clearing things out for the time being. Core flip comes out of Chaotic, just holding on to it to go for the back pass over to A, who has a core flip of their own. The second barrier going to fall, but Jay going to be able to move things back over to the left to try to take it in towards the barrier. Name Chaotic right in melee range with the goal. Can't quite close it out even with the drum and bass. Mr. Zerk going to detonate that black hole, going to be able to find the second barrier and going to be able to open things on up for the team. Jay, one-on-one with Elo Tourist here if she wants it. Now going to back on off just to try to reset the offense into the way that they can win it out. There's going to be the Blobos holding down the core, continuing to send it over to the left, but Jay with the Egoist proc rapidly moving across the map, but can't get over to the core in time. Rose warps forward, has a core flip of her own, but needs to get that core into range, or does she? It's a cross-map ricochet off the Cosmic Expanse, and Wisp gets the goal.
Literally everyone on the map. Mr. Jay went for the Rose Thorns, Zert went for the hook, and Elotaurus went for the strike, and all three of them misread the angle and the speed of that. And it just floated right in. Bit of a huge warp from Jay, who still has a core flip available, and Ember's Flame in a massive position to take another point here.
Really great stuff there from Jay, finding the perfect angle on the Rose Warp to send that core into the double barrier. Flip comes out of Mr. Zert. Flip available for Jay as well. They're betting it all on the shot. Ricochet off the top and the piercing shot. Not going to be able to get it past Elo Tourist, who holds on for now. Polar Cortex not saying die on this set. Not willing to give game and match point over to Ember's Flame, but it might not be up to him. Passed back up to Jay. Cleared away by another Giga Blast. But the pendulum swing from Mr. Zert will sneak it through. 2-1 in sets. Ember's Flame in the lead again.
Yeah, now Wisp, the MVP here. If Ariel shows up and Jay gets that, it might be over. Okay, no Ariel showing up, but Catalyst is on the board. which is a very dangerous thing to be dealing with right now. A couple sparks here, but no one's opted into those. Extra special. Actually picked up by the Atlas here. Gonna leave the energy available. Forced Juno to deny it away. I say deny it. It's still a really good pickup, and it does leave explosive entrance available for Jay, which is also pretty incredible. Yeah, Jay's just gonna go wherever she wants at this point. You can't track the cooldown of the blink because you have 2 of them, and you have no idea where she's gonna wind up because it goes across the entire map. So that's really like the big notable pickup out of this draft for sure, as Ember's Flame continue to build around their midfielder, and it's just going to be pretty tough here for Polar Cortex to deal with.
Definitely. One barrier taken a piece now, fresh off of that second draft, and Jay, again, up on the top, trying to push it into that second barrier, will be able to open things up yet again, and feels like Ember's Flame have been grooving over the course of the last couple of sets, really starting to come alive in this second game, and looking like they are ready to take the series, but Polar Cortex with a chance to fight back, going to be able to take that second barrier, going to be able to get open goals out of both sides. Jay now drooling up on the top, moves forward. She can't quite get it in there with the piercing shot, and now another ricochet off the center. Gets right in there. Name Chaotic able to just find one little strike from the bottom, and it drifts on up. Wisp can't get there in time.
Yeah, a little bit of a misread from Wisp, but still in a pretty decent position. It's only the first point, so they can let it go. They're going to have energy coming up across the board, right? And Jay is going to be the one kind of benefiting from that the most with the Egoist proc. Ooh. So we'll see how they're able to play. It's a nice snipe with the Rose Thorns for the first barrier as well.
Yeah, really nicely done there by Jay once again. She even set that up with an earlier Rose Warp to be able to snag the core in mid-pass, so really finding great offensive options in this game number 3 on the Estelle. Setting up another piercing shot. That one not going to connect. Now Name Chaotic back into a strong position, trapping Wisp in there with the ensnare drums, able to take a barrier for it, and ricocheting it down towards the bottom. Name Chaotic trying to send it back over towards A, but it's going to be the pendulum swing coming on out, not quite able to connect with the core, and Mr. Zert loses all his stagger for it and loses out on the barrier. Could be a KO coming up before too long. Name Chaotic has access to the core flip, looking to be able to close out this point into the open goal, but Jay thinks otherwise, able to open up the goal for herself on the opposite side. Does have access to the flip, but they gotta keep it away from Chaotic. They can't let this shot come through. The flip is used, but doesn't connect onto the core, and Mr. Zert and Jay now with a chance to be able to take it for themselves. Rose Warp up, not able to get the flip off. It's moved back up by Mr. Zert. Another piercing shot angle, another core flip, another shot, and Jay finds it for Ember's Flame.
It is so difficult to lock down Jay at this point. They had it in the first couple sets, but once Jay got some of those good speed awakenings, it is becoming exceptionally hard. There's no speed on the Kai. There's no dash awakening on the Juno. The repositioning value is just not there for the defense, especially on the open net. And what's crazy is, like, it's Kai. He's kind of better at defending an open net than he is at defending the single barrier. So it's a really tough defensive scenario to be in for Polar Cortex. Like, the way that they can really only get these points is by keeping up super hard momentum and just feeding Name Chaotic the core as much as possible. But as soon as Jay is able to break away with it, things start to fall apart pretty quickly.
Yeah, another pass up. Oh, and that was nearly a scoring opportunity, but Elo Tourist with a nice connection on the strike shot, going to be able to send things back on away. Really good job there, and going to be able to send it through, but no, Mr. Zert comes up with the KO. Was not expecting that one to take him out, and they do find it. 2-1 lead over to Ember's Flame. Yeah,
and 3 Rampage stacks as well on Zert. This Rasmus is of pretty considerable size. That pendulum swing goes very far, and naturally it's just going to hit very hard. The Egoist proc here from Jay burns the flip into the piercing shot. That's both barriers gone, as Ember's Flame 1 point away from sealing the deal and taking the series.
Yeah, going to keep their winners bracket run alive. Will not be an elimination for Polar Cortex, but certainly don't want to lose it here, but that is not their choice. Jay takes it. 1 more goal to the Estelle, and Ember's Flame will move on in the upper bracket, taking Polar Cortex down, and a seeding upset to kick off the day. Seed 9 moving on, seed 8 falling down.
Yeah, and waiting to face them in the winners' quarterfinals will be Return to Form, but looking at this game once again, Jay, notably the MVP for a second time. Both these games has gotten a pretty crazy Estelle build and played it very well. But 230 redirects on A, 202 on Elo Tourist. They tried their absolute best, but how could you stop something that can just be anywhere and do anything? 9 goal participations on J there. Definitely a force to be reckoned with, this Embers Flame team. And we'll see how they do moving on to the winners quarterfinals, because that was, even in a pretty close one, it looked like they were in control pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely. A great run here to start off Liftoff for this squad as they come on up with the win. And yeah, like you said, we'll move on to face off against Return to Form, and that's certainly going to be an exciting matchup here. We will have another one coming on up here before too long, waiting to find out what that matchup is going to be. But definitely a great way to kick things off. And yeah, another step closer to being able to make it to landing. Just 2 more series wins will do that for you now that Embers Flame have been able to take round number 1.
Yeah, and looks like the next match, we're waiting on the winner, but it's going to be Platinum exclusive versus either the winner of Now's Bureau of Strikers or Dynasty Party. Now's Bureau of Strikers currently up 1 game in the series, but still continuing to play, so we'll have to see what that ends up looking like. But we're going to be throwing it to a bit of a break while we wait on that, so stick around. When we come back, it'll be winners quarterfinals.